Total Screen proudly presents the Weekly Set Podcast with Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Episode 225, recorded October 5th, 2019. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of the Total Screen. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at the Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today we are celebrating our 225th episode, and if you've listened to this podcast, you know what we do pretty much every 25 episodes, advocates of great television.
Advocates of great television.
So we're going to be doing it a little bit differently this time. Normally what that means, if you don't listen to the show, is that we have a guest on, and we all advocate for a specific show, and then we all watch it and discuss those shows. Well, I decided to do something a little bit different this time. We weren't really able to secure a guest in time, and we just kind of wanted to get something a little bit different. So what we're doing this time is it's just Will and I that are going to be on the show discussing it. But we've had 3 of our friends, people who've been on the show before, send in audio basically saying what shows we should watch. And so we didn't pick any of our own shows to watch this time. Like, Will and I didn't pick a show. We got shows picked from Nick, Fried, and Travis, who have all been on this show a few times, or on other shows. I don't think Fried's been on this show, but he's been on the Nintendo podcast we do. But I think Travis, I'm not sure about Travis. Nick has definitely been on this show, I think once or twice. But anyways, the 3 of them sent in audio and saying what show and specific episode we watched. So we watched all 3 of these, and then we're going to discuss them. And then we're going to, pick which ones were our favorites, which ones were good for which reasons, and what we thought of them in general. So we're going to kick things off with Nick's pick. This is Nick discussing his pick.
Hi everyone, my name is Nick and I am a member of the Game Witness Discord, and my selection for today was Comedians and Cars Getting Coffee, specifically the episode with Jerry Lewis. This, I think, is one of the best episodes of the show. Not just because of the fact that it's just Jerry, but I also think that it really ties in all of what the show is about. From finding the right car for the right comedian, taking them to the right place, and then just talking about history, talking about everything that makes them who they are. And I think everything that Jerry Seinfeld has done in the show has led up to this point of him talking with Jerry Lewis. Not to mention this was also Jerry Lewis's final on-screen appearance before he passed away. So I think it's also a very relevant episode, not just for the show, but also I think for comedy in general. And also, it's a really good way to show off what the show is about. And between selecting the cars, again, going to the different places, talking about the history, but there's also more than that, and it goes also with the fact that there is also archival footage throughout showing off Jerry Lewis's career, as well as television appearances between Jerry Seinfeld and Jerry Lewis. So overall, it's a very well done episode, and this has been my take for advocates of great television. And not only is it just a great episode, but the show in general is very well done. And honestly, if you really want a good laugh, and if you have maybe 20 minutes to spare, it's definitely worth checking out. So definitely check it out, and thank you for your time, and I will see you later.
Okay, so that was Nick's pick. He picked Comedians and Cars Getting Coffee, the episode with Jerry Lewis. Have you seen this show before at all?
I have not watched the show at all before, so...
I haven't either, but, after watching it, I kind of, before we even get into the discussion of the episode itself, I kind of thought, this is a good show for, every so often I'm just kind of cruising Netflix going, I just want to, have a comedy episode play while I play some Fire Emblem or something,
Right, yeah, this looks like it'd be a fun show to put on in the background. I definitely enjoyed this episode. It's always great because Jerry Lewis is such an iconic comedian of the 60s and stuff, and I think at least like for people our age and older, I think everybody knows who Jerry Lewis was.
Yeah.
It's like, how could you not? Right. I can't.
Yeah, he's super famous.
can't speak for the current generation, they with their Justin Biebers. It's but it was really great to see him interacting with Jerry Seinfeld and really getting this like retrospective of his career, at what essentially the end of his life, him look at, this probably like the last interview he ever did, right?
I think, Shoulder said it was his last on-screen appearance.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of fun anecdotes in that. Basically, like, he gives the origin of Lady.
Yeah, hey lady.
Hey lady, yeah. He gives the origin of that. I love the car that Jerry Seinfeld picks him up in. A very nice, classy, classic car. And
that's what, the second it got to like the picking of the car and stuff, I'm like, okay, I can see why, Nick's really into the show. He's a big, car head.
Oh, okay, right. He's a big car nut. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this has gotta be like 50% of his love of the show. It's not just like a cool car, but like these like real kind of iconic, notable cars, so.
But they don't get coffee, because Jerry Lewis didn't like coffee, so.
Seinfeld gets coffee. I like to think he drank 2 cups.
Yes. To make up for it, right? They get 2 cups. It was really cool, and yeah, we got to see some nice discussions about some of the classic Jerry Lewis bits that he did, like in the bellboy with the telephone bit. They showed the rehearsal footage, basically, the version of it, and basically you got to get Jerry Lewis insights into how he developed that bit.
It's an off-reference scene, like it's something you've seen a lot, referenced in other movies and
yes,
TV shows and parodies and stuff that have done that scene, like they've copied it, So it's really kind of cool to see not just the original scene, which I hadn't really seen, but also to see like kind of a discussion of how that was crafted, like the methodology that went into setting that up, and
even like the technical details, like how long should that bit go on? How many rings is too many rings? How do you get it down so that it's funny but it doesn't wear out?
Yeah, it's like a dissection of the craft, which is really kind of fascinating to kind of pay attention to as somebody who's not involved in that media.
That I think the most fascinating part of the episode for me was the shop talk between Jerry and Jerry.
Between J squared.
Yeah, J squared. Yeah, I think that was the most interesting thing for me. Just these two of the greatest comedians of all time talking shop and talking about the craft was the most fascinating part of it for me.
It's one of the reasons why I've really enjoyed like the Conan O'Brien's podcast, is that whenever he has comedians on, they talk a lot of shop and stuff, and it's really fascinating. Seeing like not just like, oh, this is funny, but seeing like how something is crafted like that. And this is like 2 absolute masters, like one of the greatest innovators, in comedy, and then one of the, the guy that created the show about nothing,
Yeah, the guy, yeah, exactly.
So you get the 2 of them together, kind of talking shop. It's really funny. It's really funny watching them kind of like, Jerry Lewis will kind of hold on to a bit or something, like while he's talking to Jerry. It seems like he's like insulted or something. It just goes silent for a bit, and then one of them starts laughing.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like the bond between comedians and the way they kind of communicate with each other. It was really interesting.
I found it really interesting. So I enjoyed that. Thank you for recommending that, Nick.
Thank you for that pick, Nick. Next up is Fried, and let me play his selection now.
Yo, Tyson, what's up? This is Fried out here in New York City. I just got home from work, and I want to talk a little bit about my pick for your show. I'm also here with my birds, so if you hear any chirping or screeching in the background, it is probably them being unreasonably loud. So my pick for your show is a drama called Succession on HBO. It is in that kind of genre of shows that's all about exploring the ultra-rich and their lifestyles and happenings and whatnot. This one's a little bit different from others I've seen of this ilk, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So Succession revolves around a patriarch, Logan Roy, and his family. Logan runs a kind of everything corporation. It does everything from TV, internet, radio, movies, rocket ships, and I think weapons too. So he kind of has his hand in everything. It's how he's been able to keep his wealth and power high up on the global scale. And it's also about his kids, 3 sons and 1 daughter, and their kind of attempts to rise to the occasion and eventually run the business, but also his unwillingness to hand the reins off so easily. It's about that family dynamic, and at the same time, you have these ultra-rich people doing ultra-rich things, and there's a lot of weird quirks to that lifestyle that are explored and fun to watch. The show is a little different from others I've seen of this ilk, and a lot of it has to do, I think, with the producers, Adam McKay and Will Ferrell. There's like a kind of sarcastic or satirical tone to the show at times. It's still a drama, first and foremost, but some of the writing and characters and situations are pretty funny and cringy. It kind of has like a Silicon Valley vibe at times. But yeah, that humorous edge kind of interested me, and it kept me going and interested in the show as I was going through the first season. Also, like, none of the main characters, like the main family characters, are particularly likable. Not to the sense that I would hate them or stop watching the show, but in the sense that, they're all pretty interestingly flawed, some in gross ways, some in like more realistic ways, and it's kind of fun to see them interact with each other and, others in their kind of class. There's a voyeuristic thrill in seeing the rich do extravagant rich people things, and then also seeing them stumble, fall flat on their faces, and then eat each other. It's Schadenfreude, right? It's laughing at people's failures, and it's probably not the best thing to do, but when it's fiction and TV, I think it's perfectly moral, and it's entertaining. At least I think so. I actually think the family dynamics in the show are, they should be the most interesting, and they actually are. They're well written, and especially the veteran interactions, to me at least, they felt pretty real. There's a lot of crass language and mean comments. At the same time, there's like a camaraderie there. It reminded me of how, I would talk with my brother. It's just insulting each other and then, hey, what's up? Let's go watch a movie or something. So yeah, that's pretty cool and well written, and I enjoyed that. A lot of cursing in the show, especially from Kieran Culkin's character. He just has like one of the filthiest mouths on television. It's amazing. The only characters I think that are meant to be enjoyed directly are Tom and Greg. They're both kind of like outsider characters to this extravagant lifestyle. Tom is marrying into it. Greg kind of like lucks his way into the family, and they're kind of also like foils to each other, and it's pretty fun to see them interact with each other, and you see a lot of that in the show, and especially in this episode I think they have a couple of scenes together, and it's all pretty fun, and they're basically comic relief, and it's great. It's pretty great. Now the episode I chose a little later in the season, it's Prague, and I think it's episode 8 out of a 10 episode season, so yeah, it's pretty late in there, but I don't think you need to know too much beforehand. I think it's pretty standalone. You kind of are centered around this one set piece area, so not too much moving around, not too much scenes that take place out of it. If I recall correctly, I don't remember the episode too much, so I liked it a lot. So hopefully, you're not lost. It's centered around Tom's bachelor party. He's getting married to the daughter in the family, Siobhan, and they kind of take him to this kind of underground club area, and you get to see an aspect of the rich lifestyle, and at the same time see these characters kind of, again, it's Schadenfreude, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. The one thing I'd like you to keep an ear out for is the language. There's some very interesting lines tossed around here that, as someone who works with rich, extravagant people from time to time, I've heard a lot of. Okay, so there's this one line in particular. About 2 or 3 years ago, I went to a party during New York Fashion Week, and I heard this woman use the word fucklehead to a waitress. And I'm like, wow, I've never heard that kind of word used in my life. It's like the first time I heard it. It's a rich person thing to make up new curse words to people they hate, I guess, whatever. I'm watching this episode 3 years later, and one of the characters in the show, I forget who does it, they use the word fucklehead. I'm like, damn. So clearly, someone on the writing staff or producing staff has some pretty intimate knowledge about, these lifestyles, and that kind of cemented the show for me. It's like, okay, this is a little more research. At the same time, it's, there's a satirical bent to it, and I enjoy that. Again, I don't recall the episode in specifics, but as far as the show goes in general, one of the biggest takeaways is probably Greg. He's kind of like the standout character in the series. Pure comedic relief, but he's always fun to watch as he interacts with these other big egos. He's also kind of like my mirror. It's insane how much his life and his kind of character mirrors mine, and it kind of freaks me out because I heard the word fucklehead, and now I'm wondering if Greg was also stolen from me. But I'm not white or 8 feet tall, so probably not. But still, if you want to know a little bit more about your boy Fried, now's your chance. Just take an analysis of Greg, and you can learn a little bit more about me, I guess. Hope you enjoy it, and if you don't at me. Alright, see ya.
So that was Fried's pick for Advocates, Succession, particularly the episode Prague. So, have you seen Succession at all before?
I have not. This is my first time seeing Succession. I think Fry's description is apt. I think, this is a show about rich, shitty people. And normally I'm not into that kind of thing, but he's right, there is a satirical edge to the show that makes it more palatable.
Yeah, Schadenfreude, as he said, which is, the German word for laughing at the expense of others.
Right. Cause these people are awful, and it's clear from just watching the one episode that they will go to absurd, ridiculous lengths just to screw each other over.
Yeah, as one of the guys they were negotiating with said, "This family."
yeah, this family. It's fucking family. It's clear that Rip Torn's character is an obvious analog of Rupert Murdoch.
Rip Torn, you mean? I think is it Rip Torn? I thought that was Brian Cox.
Oh, Brian Cox. You're right. I get them confused sometimes.
I think Rip Torn's been dead for a couple years.
He just died this year. But you're right. Yeah, Brian Cox is supposed to obviously be, it's
kind of like a Rupert Murdoch, except he seems like he has, as Fried pointed out, his hands in more industries.
Right.
But he's definitely has some kind of a conservative news network, which is obviously a play on Fox News.
Yeah. That was an obvious Fox News. Okay. That was not even subtle about it.
Yeah, but they're not, the character itself is not an exact like Rupert Murdoch. I mean, Rupert Murdoch is also Australian, you know?
Well, no,
but
it's a composite.
Yeah. It's just kind of taking the idea of somebody of that ilk, you know, and what they're like. I gotta say, I didn't enjoy this one that much. I just, I don't really enjoy watching shitty people. I get the Schadenfreude aspect, but it just, it didn't click with me as much.
Right.
As, I could imagine with Fried's background, cause Fried is I believe he's a driver in his day job, and so he'll drive around rich people and stuff.
So he drives around rich people.
Yeah. So for him, this is a show that ties directly into his life and
so he can relate a bit to this.
Yes. Not necessarily to the characters, but to the shittiness of the characters.
The shittiness of, the world that surrounds it.
Yeah, exactly.
More or less. And to me, this is just completely alien.
Yeah. I get the horrible dialogue, the very bad, cursing and stuff like that. It's reminiscent of, The Thick of It, which was a political show from the UK that Peter Capaldi, who ended up being one of the doctors within, and he just had this horrible mouth and just say
say horrific things. It was amazing. I actually love that. I actually love Peter Capaldi in that, just for his character. Because it was amazing.
So it's I could understand, it would find a similar kind of place in that aspect. I mean, it's also similar to Veep, which is kind of the American version of The Thick of It, in that it's just kind of these horrible people that are involved in politics, and they're just scumbags, and, you're just getting this kind of inside look into their lives, and just how they're just all miserable, and just always screwing each other over, and it's kind of I get that aspect of it. I don't particularly enjoy that, so it wasn't really doing a lot for me, but there were things to take away from it that were interesting. I did like a lot of the performances in it. I liked Kieran Culkin's character, as he said, is really funny, just the way he acts and the way he speaks. I also I don't know the names of the characters, but the one character that was kind of the outsider of the family.
Yeah.
That was at one point was gonna sell all his shares in the company stock.
Yes.
He seemed kind of the central point to me.
He did. He seemed like
the character that was potentially redeemable.
Yeah.
You know?
He seemed like the most, even though he's portrayed as having this terrible drug problem.
He's flawed.
Yeah, just despite that, he seems like the most level-headed of anybody.
Yeah, he seems like he's the one that could potentially break away from it.
And it's funny because you see the other characters kind of write him off as a junkie, and that he's not important. But you could see at the end of the episode, he's preparing to make this major power play that nobody sees coming.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting to watch on that. Man, Brian Cox's character is just a fucking horrific asshole.
He is. Yeah, he's just an asshole to event. Like the one scene that drives it home is the scene where they're negotiating for these television stations. And like Kieran Culkin is just like, oh, you got exactly, no, this is a great deal. You got what you want. You got for like a better price than you were hoping for. And then he's like, no, it's no good. He's like, why? He's like, because the other guy's still smiling. He has to be hurting. You have to fuck him over. Like it's not a good deal unless we fuck him over.
Yeah, unless he's bleeding, it's not a good deal.
Yeah, unless he's bleeding, it's not a good deal. And that's the kind of character that he is.
Yeah, that's the kind of motivation behind his life.
Yeah.
So you get like a lot of that, like a lot of understanding of him as a character in that way. I think Fried was talking about the two kind of more relatable characters being Tom, who is the character that was having the bachelor party.
Yeah.
God,
well, I feel sorry
was
for
with him with not knowing what snowballing was, but but performing the acts.
Performing the acts. And then he goes and he repeats it to like he brags about it to everybody. He's like I swallowed my own cum. It
was so hot.
It was so hot.
And everybody's like mocking him in their relation to that, and he's just like not picking up on it.
Yeah, he's not picking up that people are just like making fun of him because of that.
It's also clear in this episode that he's being severely cuckolded by his soon-to-be wife.
Yes, because she's having
he's all nervous about reciprocation for him doing something on his bachelor party that she might be doing it too, and he's all worried about that. And it looks like she's been having a long-term affair.
Yeah, she's having an affair with her coworker.
Yeah, that seems to have no end in sight.
Yeah, exactly. And he's clueless, and he's sitting there worried about the littlest thing. And the whole time I'm like, and she's cheating on you anyway. Just fucking do it. just do it.
He seems like the kind of character that will eventually find that out and then just become like a horrible character himself.
Yeah.
Because he'll just be like, yeah, fuck everyone kind of thing. There's a character like that kind of in the show You're the Worst. There was a character that ended up being kind of so treated poorly. Like he was like this kind of sweet character, but he kept being treated so poorly over and over again that he just reached a certain point and he just became like a total men's rights activist, asshole, just being just going out of his way to screw over other people and stuff like that. And it was just, I could see this character kind of becoming that. He's swimming in the waters with sharks, and he's eventually gonna the behavior's gonna rub off on him.
Right.
I think Fried was comparing himself to the one character that was tasked with keeping the character that we had mentioned before, who has a drug problem, tasked with keeping him alive.
Yes.
I think that's who he was comparing himself to as an analog. So that was kind of interesting. His character was kind of funny, running around trying desperately to keep the guy alive and trying to keep him safe. And every time he'd be like, "Oh, can I get you anything? A water, a Gatorade?" And the guy's like, no, ketamine. Ketamine. Give me ketamine."
It's so tragic because he is way too meek for the world that he inhabits. He is like a guppy surrounded by sharks.
Yeah.
And I just feel like they're liable to eat him alive at any moment.
Yeah, definitely. So that's it for Succession. That was Fried's pick. Next up, our last pick is Travis's pick, and I'm gonna play the audio for us now.
Hello, Total Screen listeners! This is Simply Travis from the Lamer Gamers podcast, and I wanted to have the guys from the Total Screen watch an episode from my favorite series, Scrubs. If you don't know much about Scrubs, it follows the wildly imaginative and self-doubting JD as he enters the medical field along with a cast of colorful characters and wacky antics. The episode I want the guys to watch, however, is My Screw Up, because even though most people associate Scrubs with a light-hearted comedy show, this particular episode uses the juxtaposition between comedy and tragedy to strike a nerve that is rarely hit upon in a sitcom.
Okay, so that was Travis's pick, which is Scrubs, a sitcom. It's a good follow-up to Succession that was kind of a more dreary, very dark in its comedic ways, but mostly drama series that we jump right into a comedy.
Scrubs is mostly live action. It's definitely like heavily more into comedy than drama. There's dramatic moments in Scrubs. I mean, I've seen Scrubs before, like obviously.
Yeah. Have you seen this episode before?
No. I mean, I've seen Scrubs before, but it's like most sitcoms where like I've seen random scattered episodes, like rather than watch it religiously. But if I had to describe Scrubs, it's like a live action like Simpsons or Family Guy set in a hospital.
It does kind of have like a cartoon kind of vibe to it. Like
it does.
And it's kind of near surrealistic take. If anybody likes that kind of stuff and wants something else that's kind of like another hospital set wacky show, there's a British series called Green Wing that's also really good.
Well, it's mostly centered around the main character JD though. Like all the humor, like most of the wacky stuff centers around him and like his thoughts. Like he will think or imagine something and it will like show it like an enactment of what he's thinking.
It's not limited to him though. I mean, like in this very episode, they had the whole subplot with his friend having the mole, and his friend's girlfriend like seeing the mole as like an actual personification of the mole. Yeah,
like a puppet mole. Yeah, it's funny because so this episode, like you had told me prior not to read the episode description.
Yes, that was at Travis's request. He said, "Don't read the episode description until you watch it."
And so I'm like, okay, there must be like something different about this episode. But when I was watching it, whole time I was kind of thinking, this is a pretty typical episode of Scrubs. I don't know why nobody want me to read the episode description. Then I get to the end and I'm like, oh.
I could kind of see it coming, like not necessarily him being dead, but like I thought it was going to end with him revealing that he had cancer again.
Yeah, that's how I thought it was going to end too. Like I didn't see like the swerve where he was actually dead the whole time. Like that was the swerve, especially because like the way they did it, like they did a good job, like they telegraphed it right because they established that he had cancer. Not only did he have cancer, but he was like neglecting it. Like he didn't see any doctors about it for like 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. That should be a red flag. And so they kind of pull like a Sixth Sense, but it's different too because like you don't see it coming because it's not like he's only interacting with Dr. Cox and he seems like he seems to have interactions with other people too, like mostly like JD and stuff.
That's a little bit of unreliable narration where we don't know exactly where the line was of what we were seeing was real and what we were seeing was kind of a manifestation of what they needed to show us.
But since there's no expectation that Brendan Fraser's character isn't real, like you don't question it at that point. Up until like you get to the end when Dr. Cox is supposed to be going with his brother-in-law to a party, and then JD shows up, and Dr. Cox is talking about going to this party, and then JD just says, where do you think you are? And then he looks and his brother's gone, and he's actually not at a party, they're at a funeral for his, brother-in-law.
Yeah. And definitely,
that's the swerve. That's when it like hits you. It just punches you in the gut out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's kind of a swerve moment. It's a sad moment on there. It's sad because not only did Brendan Fraser's character die, but I believe that was around the time his career died too.
Yes, sadly. Sadly. Also Tara Reid, another 90s alum with a dead career, shows up in this episode.
Hey, she had her Sharknado revival, and Brandon Fraser is having his revival right now in Doom Patrol. So
but it's also extra because even though Brendan Fraser's character only shows up for this episode, through his interaction with Dr. Cox and through like the way we see like how their relationship works and how close like they are, that's what makes the ending have the impact it has. He's not.
See, I was wondering that. You say you watched more episodes, and this is the only episode he's appeared in?
The only one I've seen him in. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen like every episode of Scrubs, so maybe maybe. I don't know. I didn't look it up. Let me see.
Oh no,
IMDb.
he'd been in more episodes.
Okay, well, whatever. The only one I saw of him in it, so I can, with only that context, I could specifically say they did a good job establishing the relationship within the episode and making it have an impact. He was like in 3
definitely.
episodes apparently, so 2 other episodes besides this one. Actually, it's funny because yeah, he was in 2 episodes in 2002 and then that one in 2004. So okay, well, he was an established character obviously before.
He'd gone away for multiple years after stopping treatment to like see the world, so that must have been a reference to the episode before this that he was in.
Right.
That must have been him leaving, basically. So yeah, it's interesting the way they played that through.
Yeah, I looked at he first appeared in a 2002 episode where he showed up at the hospital and JD diagnoses him with cancer.
Okay.
And that was like the first appearance of that character, so.
It's interesting. We've talked before about, it's kind of a trope, the imaginary friend character kind of thing.
Yes.
Where the audience isn't in on the fact that the character isn't really there. It's, of course, most popular from like Fight Club. More recently, a good example would be Mr. Robot that does that. Legion does it with a few different characters and things. It does all sorts of weird, surrealistic, crazy stuff. But we've also talked about where it's been done wrong. Like, for example, Dexter that did that one season with the serial killer that was, seeing Edward James Olmos everywhere.
Yes.
And you thought that they were this serial killer team, but they weren't really. It was just one person. That was a case in which you saw it coming from like almost the first moment he was on screen. Like, it was so obvious. It was so painfully obvious. So that's the tricky thing about doing this, because it's a really cool move. It's just that people have seen it done before, and when you've seen it done before, you kind of can see it coming sometimes. So it's good when you can, like, catch somebody off guard. Like, I saw a swerve coming, but I thought the swerve was going to be the reveal that he had cancer again, not that he was already dead, and that he was dead the whole time.
Right. Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
So it made it a good episode with, like, a little gut punch at the end, which is good.
Yes. And the rest of the episode, just classic Scrubs. If you haven't seen Scrubs, I recommend it. It's a pretty funny show. It's the kind of
show. And if you have seen Scrubs and you want something more like it, check out Green Wing.
Yes.
Which is a British show kind of like that. But yeah, that's Scrubs, at Travis's pick. And that brings us to an end of, the 3 shows we're discussing. Out of these 3, which was your favorite?
I'm going to be biased and say Scrubs. But I already liked Scrubs before this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still going to be biased and say Scrubs.
I'm going to say Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
That was
my favorite.
That was good.
It was fun watching the dissection of the craft. And like I said, this is something that, like, I feel like I've been looking for. Like something I can just put in on the background while I'm playing a game or something. Because oftentimes I'll do that. Like I said, I'll look for like a stand-up special or something. And this is something I could do that's similar to that. So yeah. It kind of filled a niche that I wasn't expecting. I'd say I got to feel bad for Fried. It sounds like we're shitting on his pick, but
I liked Succession. I'm probably gonna go ahead and watch more of it. Although I don't think it's going past the 2nd season.
That you're gonna go past it, or because it's already aired a 2nd season, I think.
No, I don't think the show's going past the 2nd season.
Okay, I'm not sure on that. It's a pretty critically well-rated show, so I'm not sure.
Oh, no, it's been renewed for season 3. According to this. Yeah, okay, never mind.
It's a pretty well-rated show.
I saw some comment on the internet, somebody complaining about Watchmen, saying, I can't believe Succession had to die for this. Like, what?
People are just going to talk shit on the internet. That's what it's for.
That led me to believe it got canceled, but apparently somebody's just an idiot. It's like, here's whatever shit talk Watchmen. Okay.
Maybe it's because Succession is going to, I think, complete its 2nd season right before Watchmen starts.
Oh, probably.
And so he thinks just it going off the air is a tragedy or something. I don't know. I can't speak for crazy people. But I will say about Succession is that when I watched it initially, I really wasn't getting much out of it at all. But upon listening to kind of Fried's reasoning for it, I actually was able to kind of get some perspective on what I'd seen and get a little bit more out of it than I had just from watching it alone. So that kind of shows the power of having, more than just a recommendation of watch this show, but like having somebody give you a reason to watch it,
Right.
So yeah, that is our discussion of Advocates of Great Television.
Advocates of Great Television.
But it's our 225th episode, and we're beginning our next season starting next week, where we are going to be discussing The Good Place. We're going to be talking about the first, I believe, 3. I thought it was going to be 4, but it looks like it's going to be the first 3 episodes of the final season that have just started airing, and then we're going to be up to date from that point on. And then after that, we're going to be discussing both The Good Place and Mr. Robot. So if you want to know what we're going to be discussing for the foreseeable future, that's it. But until then, until next week, here's what's coming up in the week ahead. On Friday, October 4th, The Blacklist comes to NBC, or returns. Peaky Blinders already returned on Netflix, as well as Raising Dion. This is the new show from Michael B. Jordan about a woman raising a child who has superpowers. And then Big Mouth also returned for its 3rd season on Netflix. Then on Amazon Prime, Goliath came back on Friday as well. This Sunday, October 6, 2019, Back to Life on Showtime. Batgirl and Supergirl on the CW. Madam Secretary on CBS, Get Shorty on Epix, Star Wars Resistance on Disney, Mr. Robot on USA, which we are going to be discussing, Press on PBS, and The Walking Dead on AMC. Then on Monday, October 7th, 2019, All American on the CW, Black Lightning on the CW, Primal on Adult Swim. On Tuesday, October 8th, The Flash on the CW. On Wednesday, October 9th, Nancy Drew and Riverdale on the CW. On Thursday, October 10th, Legacies and Supernatural on the CW. On Friday, October 11th, Charmed and Destiny on the CW, as well as Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nickelodeon, The Birch on Facebook Watch, and El Camino, the Breaking Bad movie on Netflix, as well as Little Monsters on Hulu. I cannot wait for El Camino. That's one I'm really excited for. Then on Monday, October 14th, Letterkenny on Hulu, Looking for Alaska on Hulu. On Tuesday, October 15th, Arrow on the CW, and The Purge and Treadstone on USA. Treadstone is the new spin-off series of The Bourne Identity. So it's kind of about that organization that trained those unbeatable hitmen. On Wednesday, October 16th, Limetown comes to Facebook Watch, and Impulse returns on YouTube. On Friday, October 18th, The House of Flowers on Netflix, Baby on Netflix, Living with Yourself on Netflix, Looking for an Alaska, a new miniseries on Hulu, and Modern Love on Amazon Prime. So that's everything that's coming up on the week ahead. As I mentioned, next week we're going to be talking about The Good Place. So until then, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Hi.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best